Hi, everybody. ImpactCo Campus Race will be hosting their annual semi-formal on Saturday, the 24th of September. If you'd like to find out more about it, do head over to ImpactCampus Race on Instagram. Do follow them, and they are found at ImpactCampus Race on Instagram to find out more about the party and where you can get a little bit more information about it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 43 of the ImpactCo podcast. It's a special episode today. It's the ImpactCo partnership with UCT InvestSoc. And so today I'm thrilled to introduce my guest. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to you, the listeners in our community, for subscribing, for engaging, for being a part of the impact that is taking place in the ImpactCo community. And without further ado, let me introduce my guests and say good morning. Just about good morning to them. I have with me in the virtual room today, I have Brendan and I have Bhargav. Brendan is the president of UCT InvestSoc and Bhargav is the finance director of UCT InvestSoc. And as I say, thanks very much, guys, for joining us today. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thanks, Taffa. How are you?
No, very well, very well. Bhargav, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, very well actually. How are you doing?
No, good. It's been, people won't know, it's been quite a while since we've been wanting to do this episode. So I'm glad that we finally managed to be able to get it done. And I'm thrilled to be able to welcome you guys to episode 43 of the ImpactCo podcast. So getting started, I want us to talk a little bit about yourselves. The guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves in terms of where you're from and where you were born and what you're studying. And I'll start with you, Bhargav.
Yeah, so I'm originally from India, but my family's been in Botswana for the longest time. And I just chose to come here, to come to UCT to study because it was close to home. It was a great city, great people. So yeah, that's how I ended up at UCT. But yeah, I'm originally from India and lived in Botswana for the longest part of my life.
It's fascinating, man. I've been to Botswana, I think, twice. Last time was about 3 years ago. It's a really fascinating country.
Great country.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brendan, what about yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, perfect. So I born in Joburg, grew up in Joburg. I spent my entire schooling life in Joburg. Fortunately, I've never had the privilege of going to Botswana yet. And then I moved to Cape Town in 2019 to go to UCT. And I mainly decided to go to UCT. Also, like Bhargav said, Cape Town's a beautiful, brilliant city. And I wanted to do the business science degree, which was only offered at UCT. And currently I am in my 4th year of my business science degree, studying finance and accounting.
Awesome, man. It's always nice to talk to another Joburger, in the community. And it's great to hear a little bit about yourselves and great to, I think, get to know you guys a little bit better. But we will get to know a little bit more as we go into the rest of the questions. Then, in terms of coming to the next section of our podcast, I want to chat a little bit about what you guys do. And I think there's often I know for me as an engineer, there's a conception that engineers are just engineers and they're just boring. Like all we do is engineering. And I know there's kind of a similar perception about like commerce kids, because people think that you guys are just about the books and stuff. Particularly if you're really smart, what you guys are. So I want to ask you, and Bhargav, will ask you this. Coming from a commerce degree and being involved in a commerce-related society, you fit that bill. For a commerce purist, as it were. What are your other interests other than studying and tuts and tests and exams?
No, I mean my interests are like are very commerce related in that sense, or they come from a commerce side in terms of my interest into some stuff that I'm not studying, which is I'm doing a finance degree in business science, and I really like economic stuff and stuff like that, asset pricing and stuff like that. But moving out of all that, like you said, in terms of other interests, I'm a big sports guy. I watch almost every sport out there, and so big sports guy. Watch a lot of cricket, a lot of basketball, a lot of soccer. Big Liverpool fan, and I'm big time into gaming. I love gaming, online gaming, Call of Duty, that kind of stuff. Even Roman history, and history's always been something that I've always learned from and always looked back to, try to apply historical principles into my life. So yeah, and particularly Roman history, that's my area of interest. And yeah, those are some of the interests that are, apart from commerce, that sort of I try to keep up with and try to be a more holistic individual than what our common perception is out there,
Yeah, holistic is the key word there, right? I think it's really fascinating. I think you're a Liverpool fan, which I think, yeah, we might not get along as well as we should. I'm a struggling or suffering Arsenal fan, so I think, yeah, I don't really like you guys that much, but anyway. And Brendan, what about yourself? What do you do outside of commerce?
So honestly, I think that being a sports fanatic is almost a commerce necessity. I think the majority of people I know in commerce, if you ask them what their interests are outside of commerce or business, it is always sports. But I grew up as well playing a lot of sports from a family where sport was very important. For me, the main one is football. I've always loved playing football, watching football. That's how I spend my weekends. And like you guys, I'm a Manchester United fan. But that's a topic for a different podcast. So for me, it's football, squash, tennis, and golf. And most of those sports have actually only taken up in the last couple of years, which has been quite interesting. Beforehand, I was a rugby, hockey, basketball player. Now I've kind of moved to the tennis, squash, and golf. But also, I think similar to Bhargav, there are a lot of interests almost outside of my degree that still lie within commerce. And I think to thrive in a commerce degree and to really enjoy a commerce degree, you have to have a passion for it, and to want to go above and beyond just what you get taught in the classroom, but to also explore the world of commerce, because there's so much out there that we aren't taught within the few short years of our degree.
Yeah, fascinating. I think you guys are making quite a breaking of the stereotype for purists. I think you guys are really holistic, which is great. And I think, building on what you just said, Brendan, I think, when we talk around investments, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, it's quite difficult for people to make or to recommend investments. I think, diving into sort of the commerce side of things, could you name for me the worst possible investment that a person could make at this point in time? What do you think is the worst possible investment somebody can make right now?
First off, I don't claim to be an investment professional or an expert in any sense. But I think for me, that I wouldn't say there's one investment that's the worst, but I think for me, the worst investment you could make would be in something that you don't entirely understand. I think there's a lot of things on YouTube and TikTok and the internet where somebody tells you, oh, you must buy this, it's going to make you millions in a week, or ridiculous, almost impossible amounts of money. And without a solid foundation or understanding of what you're buying, what you're investing in, I think that's a really poor investment decision. I think the best options in terms of what you invest or invest in would be something that you understand or something that's a professional understands. I think it's really bad advice to put money into something that somebody on the internet just tells you to.
Yeah, and I really love how you've put that. I think it's really true that is the worst possible kind of investment, is to not understand that. And I think, Bhargav, segueing into talking a little bit more about investment, something that we've noticed is, people, particularly I think young people, have become more interested in investments over the last few years. What do you think is actually driving that at the moment?
I think it's a threefold thing. It works from sort of education, first of all, increase in educational reach, increase to the internet. People just start to learn more about these things. And accessibility, integration of society into financial markets, or inclusion of society into financial markets. Digitization is a big one. You've got virtual bank services, payment systems that are stuff like Yoko, or stuff like easy equities, softwares that make it so much easier to invest, or even a new up and coming software, I think goes by the name of Frank in the market. I mean, that's also pretty student aimed kind of software. They try to, a lot of things out there that's using leveraging technology, and I try to call this technology driven value. And that's what's being created in the market for investments. And we've seen this big rise in retail investments over time, and I think partly it's because of that method of leveraging technology to reach out to more consumers, or more customers, in terms of investing, because people have money, in some instances to invest. It's in most instances people do want to invest, but it's just a hassle. You get a broker, you do this, you do that. But nowadays it's just so much easier. And even if you're a university student doing a humanities course, you can do a finance elective and learn the basics of the stock market and make decent investment if you're a level-headed person.
Yeah.
You can invest in a good blue chip company, hold it for about 5-6 years, and you'd make a decent return, give more than that probably.
Absolutely. I love how you put that. It's really, really, really profound thinking in how you've put that. And Brendan, I think it's actually a question from one of our listeners, which goes along the lines of the fact that many people join societies at university but often don't participate. You can join maybe during a week or at some point in the sort of university calendar. So what made you decide to be as involved as you've been, in your time and your career as UCT InvestSoc president?
Sure. So I think I was also guilty of joining a society and not really participating. I joined InvestSoc in my first year, and I only attended a couple events throughout the year. And InvestSoc tries to aim to have over 30 events every year, so 2 out of 30 is not great attendance from me in my first year. But I think looking back, those 2 events that I did attend, it really just expanded my mind to this whole new world, with commerce, investments, entrepreneurship, financial markets. I think I realized that my courses were very focused on specific theoretical aspects, and like I mentioned earlier, there's so much more out there. And on top of that, I found that the people that attended these events, and particularly the InvestSoc community, are all very driven, ambitious, intelligent people. And being a part of that environment, that community, and having those few interactions with those people at those events, I got a really good feeling from it. So in second year, I then decided to get a bit more involved in the society. So just to briefly explain almost the structure of the society, we have an executive committee of 7 students, and then we have project managers who manage all the individual projects within the society. And then they usually have subcommittee members who help them organize a bit of the admin, the marketing, the budgeting within the individual project. So I joined the Entrepreneurs Connect subcommittee. So I just helped to organize some things in that portfolio. And through that, I just really felt like I was being integrated into this environment and this community that I really started to love and I was really passionate about. And from there, I just kept applying for positions of leadership. And I think because I was so passionate, so involved, I was always there, always wanting to get involved and make a difference, that I ended up having the honor of running the society this year as president.
It's quite a journey. That's really, really an incredible journey. And it's interesting how it's progressed as you've gone on, and really I think the ethos of UCT InvestSoc has come through and shone through in how you've gone through that journey. And Bhargav, I think society's changed with time, and how is the UCT of InvestSoc of today different from the society that it was sort of 2-3 years ago, and how do you think it'll be different a couple of years from now?
Yeah, I mean, Brendan, do add into what I say, because Brendan's an old soul at InvestSoc, and I've been part of the society, and I've been part of as a member, but I just threw my hat in the ring to be finance director, and I had done the position of finance director twice before. So I guess that really played into getting me into the exec, but it's quite a rigorous process to get in. But in terms of how the society has changed, I mean, if I were to say it in 2 words, it's bigger and better. And it's bigger in the sense that we've got more portfolios now, and we've got more projects going on. We're hitting record membership numbers. I mean, these numbers are crazy, you know, for a student society, and that's because of the value that we create, and that's because of what we deliver to the students in terms of we have a unique selling point, you know, and that is our ability to make relationships with external parties. In this sense, could be the corporates and stuff like that. You know, we've actually launched a trading club this year, which is never been heard of here at UCT, and it deals in a range of securities. You know, and right now it's functioning on paper portfolios, and it's got a big structure. Actually, it's got portfolio managers. It's got a couple analysts under the portfolio manager reporting to the chief investment officer, who's the project manager for the trading club. And yeah, it's a very comprehensive project that we've launched, you know. So it's these ways that we sort of create values. We've got a mentorship program, full mentorship program as part of our social impact portfolio, you know. So we've taken what has worked in the past and gotten it and made it better and added on new things to the society. So, and we've got a couple works in the plan as well, as in terms of strategic initiatives, such as increasing our presence across asset management and private equity in South Africa, or in Cape Town especially, because that space is quite growing here, you know. And they want to get graduate recruits now, so that's sort of our next aim now. And we've got a really cool private equity event next Friday, even, so on the 27th. So yeah, I mean, we're really bogging down in that space. But that's exactly what I'm trying to say, that we've gotten bigger and we've gotten better at what we do.
Yeah, love that. Really love that. I think it's really exciting to hear both about the journey that you guys have been on, as well as what's to come. I think, you know, anybody listening to this, for sure, you should definitely go and join in on all the fun and all the exciting stuff that's happening. I think, you know, you will learn an incredible amount and be better for it. And Bhargav, I want to ask you a follow-up question, you know, which came from one of our listeners, you know, which is around, you know, what advice would you give, you know, to somebody who's aspiring to reach similar goals as yourself?
I mean, personally, the goals that I have are forever changing. You know, it's more of a dynamic thing. You know, you see, you adapt, you change. Yeah, but I mean, what I want to do is I want to just be the best at what I do, and that has always been my driver. And I don't like to settle for second place. So, and sometimes you come second, sometimes you come third. It's all right, you know, it's part of it. And what my motivation is that, I mean, you just keep working at it, you know, until you get it. And it's not enough to be smart. You know, talent fails to work when you don't have hard work. So you got to work hard, and you just got to get after it, you know. And in some sense, there's a lot of competition in this economy, you know, and everybody's vying for pretty much the same thing you are. So as much as you want to take it at your own pace, it's also nice to live in that competitive environment, and, you know, get yourself, learn yourself, or teach yourself to push yourself with the competitive spirit. And I think that's what I've done, and I've thrived off competition pretty much for the better part of my life. And yeah, somebody who can do that, I think it puts you in a really good position to achieve your goals. Maybe that can be in finance, that can be in medicine, that can be in technology, probably anything. But I think that aspect of feeding off competition, I think that it might not be everybody's thing, but if it's your thing, you can really use it. Yeah, especially in commerce.
Love that, you know, to be the best at what you do, and sometimes you do come second or third, but always strive to be the best. I really love that, guys. And as a final question, and Brendan, I'll ask you this first. In addition to everything that you've just told me, you know, around what you do and the incredible amount of work that you guys do and the impact that you're making, how do you think you make an impact in your world?
So I think for me, what I'm really good at, and almost what I've developed and learned to utilize both throughout my time at university and my time throughout InvestSoc, is what I'm good at doing is identifying and maximizing value. And I think as my role as president of InvestSoc, what I've had to do is, sit in a room with recruiters from a company or the exec team of a company and a second-year student and somebody in our leadership team, and be able to almost figure out what the best way forward is, and how everybody benefits to the point where everybody's in a better position. So I think it took me a while to develop this, to understand it, to learn how to use it. But I think the way that I add value is almost by being able to find it, and being able to utilize it, to maximize it, to come up with some ideas, creative ideas. I also did art at school, which isn't usually a commerce prerequisite, but I think that kind of having a few years to grapple with that allows me to have a bit more of a creative side in terms of how I deal with things.
Super fascinating. Incredibly fascinating and inspiring, Brendan. Thanks for sharing that. And Bhargav, how do you think, in addition to what you just told me, about aiming to be the best and looking to always be the best at what you do, how do you make an impact in your world?
I think that's just part of the equation. You strive to be very good at what you do, and you end up, that basically just transfers to you sort of doing very well in your field. And my world, finance is a big part of my world, because that is what I want to go into. That is what I want to spend the better part of my life in. And it plays a very important role in society as well, in terms of capital allocation, making the right decisions and stuff like that. So I think the way that I will add or value to this particular world is just by trying to do what I'm learning here at university in the best manner after work, in work and beyond. So yeah, that's just how I think I'd add value.
Yeah, I love that.
If I were to sum it up, it just basically comes down to just try and be the best, and the try part is much more important for me than actually being the best. I think it's the process that you should value more, and you should chase after more than the end product. But it's always nice to get the end product.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you've put it there. I think, and you've spoken about the process. Incredibly important, to follow that, and really think you end up in a much better space, when that happens. And I want to thank you guys for coming on to the ImpactCo podcast. We are at the end of the episode, and I want to thank you each individually. I hope it's been fun. I hope it's been cool to have been on the podcast. I'm sure anybody who has been listening to this has been very, very well impacted. So thank you very much, guys, from us at ImpactCo to you at InvestSoc for coming onto the podcast.
And I just wanted to say thank you as well, Tafa. Thank you for having us. It was my first time being on a podcast, and I loved preparing for it, as well as being on it. And I think that this is also going to be a long journey together, both with InvestSoc and ImpactCo going forward.
Yeah, I would basically also just add what Brendan said. It's an incredible experience being on this podcast. And it also makes you feel a little bit special. I'm not gonna lie. And but apart from that, like Brendan said, I think this is the start of a very long-lasting relationship with InvestSoc, and how it will create value for both the listeners of the podcast and the members of the society.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And thank you guys. Glad you guys feel special. I feel special too. Thanks very much once again. And to you, the listener, we want to say thank you for listening to this episode 43 with UCT InvestSoc with Brendan and Bhargav, who are the president and finance director of UCT InvestSoc. We want to say thank you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. And until we meet again in episode 44, we want to say thank you very much and goodbye.